You're now listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing.
The Durian Heat, bringing big ideas and critical opinions in Southeast Asia.
Hi, this is Arlene and you're listening to DurianASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Today we are going to discuss a topic that a lot of Malaysians and people in Southeast Asia are talking about, but not really sure what is it all about. I'm talking about the TPP agreement, or the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We will be dwelling more with the US ambassador who is currently posting in Malaysia, and he'll be sharing the US pivot to ASEAN. First of all, I want to say welcome and thank you for accepting our interview.
Well, thank you very much, Arlene, and thank you very much for having me on your DurianASEAN show. Thank you.
So you know what is durian?
I know very well what is durian. I love durian, and especially Musang King.
Oh yeah, right? It's everyone's favorite.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And because we are called DurianASEAN, we might ask some thorny questions to you. And we all know last year was the year Malaysia hosted the ASEAN Summit twice, one in April and also in November. What your thought of Malaysia's progress since ASEAN Summit 2015?
I think everyone agrees that Malaysia as chair did wonderfully. Malaysia was good at making compromises, making sure that smaller countries and not only the big countries were well represented. So there were a lot of tremendous praise for ASEAN chair, especially for Foreign Minister Hanifa as well as Prime Minister Najib. I know that President Obama enjoyed being here, enjoyed discussing issues with Malaysia as a chair.
And it was his second time.
Absolutely, it was his second time. He was here also in 2014 in April. So within about 18 months, he was here twice, which is very big deal for me, for Americans living here, and I think it testifies the strength of Malaysia-US relations, as well as the importance President Obama places on ASEAN and Southeast Asia.
My question about US President Obama, he came here twice. It shows tremendous focus that US is putting towards Southeast Asia, or Asia as a whole as well. Why the shift from Middle East and Europe to Asia?
Well, number one, I would say that it's a little bit misleading to imagine that focus on Asia comes at the expense of any other region. Rather, I think we have heightened the importance of Asia, and you can see that it is being felt, in high-level engagement we have with President and my boss, Secretary Kerry, coming here a number of times. It is felt in the big trade agreement we are negotiating with the Asia-Pacific region. You alluded to that, TPPA. It is also, I think, felt in terms of security issues. We have now placed more of our military assets in the region. And it is also felt, I believe, in terms of day-to-day, what I call people-to-people engagement throughout the region. That is at first a recognition that Asia is, of course, where there will be tremendous economic growth. Asia is also a place that you have a number of emerging countries, Malaysia included. I would count countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, as well as China, obviously, who are really becoming important economically and politically. And so for all those reasons, when President Obama assumed office in 2009, he made a point of saying we need to pay more attention to Asia.
Why the US hasn't really put much attention to Asia?
I think, again, it's a little bit misleading to say we haven't put much attention. I think, to go back in history, we had put tremendous attention, especially in Southeast Asia. Vietnam War was, of course, a big item in the 60s and in the early 70s. And as Vietnam War ended, there was, I would say, shift away, especially from Southeast Asia. We closed our military base in the Philippines, for example. And so I think with the end of Cold War, there was far less emphasis on fighting communism, on having ideological wars. And so that's why there was less emphasis, I would say, 80s and 90s. But we must also remember that Asia is not only Southeast Asia, it is also Northeast Asia too, as well as South Asia. So we have been putting plenty of emphasis on Northeast Asia, Korea, Korean Peninsula, Japan, China. So if anything, I think we can characterize increase in attention, increase in resources as more to do with Southeast Asia than other part of Asia.
Laos, we all know, it's not as progressive economically than Malaysia. How does the US receive Laos as this year's chairman for ASEAN Summit?
Well, of course, when a country becomes chair of ASEAN, they are representing all of ASEAN. And we've seen that when Myanmar was chair last year, for example, and previously we've seen it with Brunei, another small country. So I don't think it's important what you have in terms of your own domestic situation, but rather what is important is whether ASEAN is united, whether ASEAN is cohesive, and if that's the case, then chair can adequately represent them. So I have no doubt that, if ASEAN is united and cohesive, Laos will represent ASEAN very well.
So you're confident with Laos?
I'm confident that if ASEAN is united and if they are coherent, then then Laos will represent them well.
Okay. Anyway, we'll take one short break. When we return, we'll discuss further, this time on the TPP deal in Southeast Asia.